Okay, I think we're live. Right on. Keenan, welcome, dude. I'm super psyched to have you on and to kind of go through this explainer for folks who are new to helium, and also just for folks who kind of want more background on those of us who got lucky enough to find it early on. So, yeah, start me off with who you are and how you found helium.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I am nobody. No one
That's
technical
not
to
true.
start with. I'm a moderator on the Helium Discord. But realistically, like I'm just a real estate agent. I found Helium 2 years ago, and I have no technical ability with this kind of stuff. I know a lot of other mods, uh, Laura and like radio and all that kind of stuff is their jam. I've got a bit of computer technical ability, but yeah, this is all new to me. So uh, I felt that I'm a good source for start to finish learning what helium is because that was me when I started.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I was asking those questions when I first started as well, and I think it's important to get this information out to the newbies who are just starting.
Yeah, let's get some. Let's get. When you say that you started, when did you get your first hotspot?
Oh man, I think that was pre-pandemic. That was I think I ordered mine in the winter of 2019, and I think it arrived. I want to say like April, April of 2019, I believe. So the pandemic had just started.
Yep.
So
Yep.
uh, I remember being, my memory's not great, but I remember being locked in my apartment and then suddenly this hotspot showing up, and I was like, oh, cool, I got some stuff to do now.
Okay. So that was, yeah, that was, geez, 2019. So that is super early. And it was so early. This is hard to understand here in, April of 2022. But
Right. Maybe
you
it was
just showed me
2020,
this
by the way. Sorry. Maybe it was 2020. I can't remember. Anyways, yeah.
early 2020. Yeah, 2020
2020
sounds good.
probably, yeah.
It
Sorry,
was a
go ahead.
while
Yeah.
ago. It was so early that Helium was, you just showed me this, was giving away cookies as a promo in order for you to be convinced to buy a Helium hotspot.
Yeah, well, basically that was it. So when I was purchasing a hotspot, it was so early that I think the network had, I want to say about 2,000 hotspots on it. And by the way, I'm in Canada. I'm close to Toronto. So back when you were looking at Explorer back then, there was three hotspots in Ontario at the time, and I think all of Canada, quite honestly. So yeah, three hotspots, and now Toronto's basically like New York. It's one of the biggest areas for hotspots. So that kind
Yeah.
of tells you how far back it was. And one of the promos to sell these hotspots, actually, I've got one sitting right here, a lovely OG hotspot.
Look at that. Ah, look at that flex.
It's pretty. It's still sexy.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, they look great. And they worked super or they worked
They
super
just
well.
work.
Yeah.
They work fantastic. And yeah, so the first hotspot I got, the promo was you got these really cool cookies. And I don't know if you're able to link it later, but yeah, the cookies were actually little hotspots or a little heart or a I heart,
Yeah.
AOT, stuff like that. Really cool.
And one of them
So
says IOU, which I maybe
yeah,
maybe they
it was
think they
funny. It was
owed you
actually
something.
when I ordered the hotspot, the cookies showed up first. And I was really excited. I was like, oh, sweet, my hotspot's here. And I opened it up and I was both impressed and happy, but also super sad that it was just the cookies. So, just for all the newbies out there, also, yeah, hotspot order to shipment has taken a while since the start. It's not a new thing.
That's
Um,
right. Yeah.
Many people, when they started, were a 3 6 month wait for their hotspot. So, this is new technology. It's going to take a while. It's nothing new.
Yep. Yeah, yeah, 100%. I think that's probably a decent place. So now I've got like a good idea of where you came from and how you got into it. Is let's talk about because what I want to do is with neither of us are very technical,
Yeah.
is we wanted to go through and kind of share what to expect as someone new to helium. Is that if you've been around long enough, like you know all this stuff that's going on and none of this stuff really phases you. But if you're new to helium, and there's a lot of folks who are coming in who are new to helium, we got 700,000 hotspots in the network
Yeah.
now, and it's supposed to grow to somewhere between 1 and 3.5 million by the end of the year. Lots of new people coming in. Is if you meet someone in a coffee shop and you're realtors, so you're always talking to people and they ask you what you do in your non-realtor time. How do you explain helium to them? How do you get them kind of started on the idea?
Yeah, well, I've had to do that. So going back to 2020, when no one had these things, I took a risk. I bought 15 of them. I became a patron. So just took a chance on it, and you need locations for them, right? So I would go around and talk to people. And honestly, if you haven't seen the "I'm glad you asked" video from Helium, that was one of their first promo materials. That explains most of it, and I use that as my basis to go and talk to potential hosts. Um, so I've got a bit of a background in crypto. I was mining Bitcoin back in like 2012, 2013. So I have a bit of some knowledge there with crypto and blockchain and how that works. But I know, especially with Helium being such a consumer friendly device, not many people do. So
Yeah.
I tend to leave the crypto part out of it a little bit. Now, I know 2 years ago, crypto was a bit more controversial. It's getting a little bit more mainstream now, so you can kind of integrate that. But
Yep.
basically, I went with uh, it's a network that we're creating for low powered devices.
Yep.
So I would lead with things like, okay, so imagine you have a tracker on your dog's collar, and it runs on GPS and cellular. That'll cost you what, 20, $30 a month. The battery lasts maybe 2 days. On this network, on Helium, the data will cost you maybe $10 for the year, and the battery will last 3 months. So it's kind of explaining what the use case was. There was a few projects, I think. So Invisaleash, that was the one that had the trackers. I don't know if they're actually around anymore. COVID hit, and that was
Yep.
probably bad for everyone.
So you've been
Um,
leading with like the sensor use case since the beginning. You didn't push it
Absolutely.
in like, hey, you can make 10 grand a month with these things. You should put one on your house and pay your mortgage.
Well, quite honestly, back then the coin wasn't worth anything. It was
Right.
on. It wasn't on any exchanges, so you couldn't even do that. It was a secondary part of it was be part of this network, and you'll earn these tokens and
Right.
hope that they're worth something in the future. And obviously, that did come to pass, but it was also a risk back then.
Yep.
So when I first started, a lot of people were just like, "No, I don't want this in my house. It's spying on me. It's it's stealing my data, things like that."
Yep.
And it was a bit of a battle, but once I explained it to a few people, and then they're like, "Oh, okay, well, it's just creating this network. It takes next to no power, very little internet data. Actually, back at the time, less." um, and yeah, those people were rewarded for taking that chance.
Yep.
I just
Yeah. I mean,
split my
as it
profits with
should be in
everyone.
general with life, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Early adopters get rewarded. That's for sure.
That's just how it goes. That's how the ball bounces. Okay. So
Yeah,
someone coming in now, though, I think they've got a fair amount to learn. But I think it chunks down into just a couple big buckets that once you understand the big concepts, you can dive as pretty much as deep as you want. But there's probably three or four main concepts in helium that will really decrease your stress levels, is the way I think of it. So you buy this thing, you have these high expectations. Is I think maybe the first thing is just set the expectation is that we are going to have 3 million hotspots in the network. You can
absolutely.
do the math and divide out the 2.5 million HNT release per month and split that out into where it goes. Approximately 2/3 of that ends up going to hotspot owners. And so out of that 2.5 million, if it's, let's call it 24, so that's 800,000, HNT gets split amongst 3 million hotspot owners. Like on average, you should know, and whatever that math works out to, I'm not really into public math. Like we are no longer in the arena of your hotspot's going to make $1 million a year or anything close to that.
No, and I think that's what it really comes down to is expectations.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, when some of the first YouTube videos started to come out about the Helium network, they were talking about profits at that time,
Yep.
which were massive.
It was
It was
crazy.
a brand new project. There was maybe, I think when the YouTube videos and TikTok started to take off, there was maybe 15,000 hotspots. Like you said, we're at 700,000 now. So the popular analogy on Discord is there's this one pizza, and each person gets a slice. And as more people come onto the network, that pizza gets divided by more and more people. So your slice gets smaller and smaller. So expectations are everything. Unfortunately, those YouTube videos are still online saying, "Oh, you'll earn $5,000 a month with one hotspot just sitting in your basement."
Yep.
No, unfortunately, that's not true anymore. It's not sustainable. That doesn't make any sense. So,
Right.
however, it's still very early in helium's lifetime. Um, there's a long way to go. The price has gone up. What is it, 80 times or something since we started? I can't remember now. It's increased huge, and we're
Yep.
still picking up steam. There's a long, long way to go. Just have your expectations in check. There will be times where the network is still growing. There's growing pains. You're going to set up your hotspot, and I think a lot of people set up their hotspot, and in the first 10 minutes, they come on Discord and they're like, it's not doing anything. I haven't earned anything yet.
Yeah.
So, and I understand that. A lot of people coming from other cryptos, you plug in an ASIC miner, you plug in a GPU miner, and it starts chugging away doing its work.
Immediately.
Hotspots
So
don't.
I've never done any of that ASIC mining. Is that how it works? You plug it in right away. You're like, oh, I
Absolutely.
made, huh?
Yeah, so that's the thing. Actually, that's a good thing to talk about. Is
Yep.
an ASIC miner, a GPU miner, a CPU miner for most other coins are proof of work, and your computers are doing these calculations, and it's a very structured, stable thing that you're doing. So an ASIC miner will mine at, let's say, 1 terahertz. Oh wow, I'm losing the terminology now. Whatever it is,
Sure. Yeah. Once you
it
plug it
mines
in,
at
it
a
starts
certain
working.
amount.
Yeah.
And as soon as you plug it in, you connect it to the internet, it starts chugging away, and you start earning tokens as you go. Helium's a little bit differently. It mines with radio. It's proof of coverage, right? So you're talking to other radios. When you hear a signal, it comes back. It gets rewarded for that. It's not as stable. So a lot of people come in thinking, "Hey, my hotspot's dead. It's not doing anything." Well, that's not true. It just takes a little bit of time. You have to have a little bit of patience. It has to sit there and talk to other hotspots, and it's a slow process. And yes, there are network issues. Absolutely,
Yeah.
Helium's a product of its own success, right? There's 700,000 hotspots on this peer-to-peer network, which it was wow. I'm surprised it's still working at all.
Yeah. That's
But
actually a great thing to talk about is that the fact that it's still working is
yeah,
a minor miracle. And so
it
here
is.
we are, April 2022, early April 2022, with the expectation of light hotspots coming on pretty soon. What do you think is the expectation that you'd set if your niece or your nephew, they're like, dude, I heard you talking about hotspots. I ordered one. I just got one in. Like, should this thing be what should this thing be doing over the next month? Like, what would you tell them?
Well, it's a good timing that we're talking about this because in what is it, 2 weeks now? 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we're going to be switching over to light hotspots.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you're right. And that should remove a lot of the issues that we're seeing right now. So the biggest problems that people come in with are, okay, my hotspot's relayed. How do I fix that? My hotspot's syncing, and it goes online, and then it falls back to syncing again. And obviously, when you're syncing, you don't earn anything.
Right.
All of that goes away with light hotspots. So in the beginning, these hotspots, the one I just showed you as well, they basically got these tiny little computers in them, Raspberry Pis, and they were doing all of the work. And these things are tiny, low powered devices. And as the network grew, and again, at 700,000 hotspots, that's a lot of computational power. So that's why we added validators.
Yep.
Validators are much higher spec machines that can handle that stuff in the background. Uh, and the hotspots are still doing some work. Now, as we transition over to full light hotspots, the hotspots themselves are going to be doing very, very little. You plug it in, it'll start working right away. There's no more syncing. You don't have to forward any ports. It should be much more consistent, lower power usage, technically lower heat, and the devices should be getting a little bit cheaper as well. Now, that's happening in 2 or 3 weeks. So right now, yes, there's a bit of there's some sketchiness going on for sure. If you plug in a hotspot, it might just work, and sometimes it'll just be stuck syncing, or it'll be synced up and it won't be doing anything.
Yeah.
There's some issues that I think Helium or Nova Labs now is patching up, and they've admitted to themselves that they're putting band-aids on things
Yeah.
until light hotspots takes over.
Yeah.
So if you plug in today, it might work, it might not. And by not
Yeah.
work, I mean it could just be inconsistent.
Yep.
If you're synced up and everything, it'll earn just inconsistently. When hotspots transition over to light hotspots, it should be much, much, much more consistent.
Yeah.
So
So let's set a couple expectations there on the light hotspot side. Is that one thing you'd said is that they're going to be cheaper. No one really knows how much cheaper they're going to be, and this is just from what I'm hearing, it's not going to be that much. We're not going to see hotspots go from like 600 to 100 because they still have the same kind of core rare component, which is this radio piece, if I'm understanding that right. So we might see them go from like 600 to 400, and that's me guessing.
yeah,
That's not like a manufacturer telling you,
yeah.
but
There's
not
a lot of
intentionally.
people that, excuse me, a lot of people that come onto Discord saying, "Well, I'm just going to wait for a light hotspot
Yep.
because they're going to drop in price a lot."
Yep.
I don't recommend that. Buy what you can today. I think we're adding, what is it, 30,000 hotspots a month right now.
Yep.
So they're still in high demand. Get what you can today. Because when light hotspots come out, I think there was this expectation that they were going to be $100 devices, and they potentially could be.
In the long term.
Years ago, when we were talking about this, because the hardware is very small. I think was it Broen that was talking about an $85 device. Now, supply and demand also comes into effect. The chip shortage, all that kind of stuff. So, um, yeah, they will lower in price, but I don't think it's anything significant. At least to start, maybe $100 less than a full hotspot, but there's still a demand for these things.
Yep.
Capitalism is going to do its thing, and
That's
they're
how
going
it's
to
going
charge
to
what
go.
they can.
And I see you guys in the chat. And Keenan, I'm not sure if you're seeing the chat as well, but they're asking about these kind of light hotspots and the pricing stuff. I think, yeah, it's just something to be aware of that. It's light hotspots are going to be really helpful. They're not going to be magical, and they're not going to change the earning of a hotspot. They're just going to make it a little bit easier to buy and deploy a hotspot. So that's probably the next
Yeah,
piece is how do you suggest someone deploys a hotspot? Are you like, hey, just chuck it in your window and forget about it? Or what do you tell a person who's like, dude, I want to do the best. How do I maximize my investment?
absolutely. So definitely don't just put it in your windowsill. Do not put it in your basement. These signals can get cut pretty hard from little things. So a window, even though it's invisible to us, you can see through it. It's a window. Radio signals can bounce off of them pretty well. So honestly, get your hotspot up as high as humanly possible. I've had a lot of success, even with the stock, like just this hotspot. If I was to just put this in my attic, just getting it high up with its stock antenna, it does great. Way better. Height is king. So as high up as humanly possible as you can get. If you have the opportunity to upgrade an antenna, get a bigger upgraded antenna, absolutely. Um, Higher DBI does not equal better, as I'm sure you've talked about before. Uh, I think people go, "Oh, I'm going to get a 30 dBi antenna because it's maximum power." That's not how that works. I recommend to people the jack of all trades is the 5.8 dBi antenna. Seems to work the best for me. They're easily available. I personally went with rack antennas. Everyone has their own opinion on antennas, and that's great. But put that outside if you can too. Outside and high up is ideal.
Yeah.
Port forward it if you can. Now, to some of the newbies, that sounds pretty daunting, and a lot of people come into the Discord saying, "Hey, how do I talk to my ISP about this? Do I get them to do it?" Nope, you do it yourself. There's lots of guides on how to do it online. Just go on Google, search how to port forward. You're going to forward your hotspot, find its IP address. You're going to forward 44158. That's it. You're good. And again, this is only for the next like couple of weeks because then light hotspots, that all goes away. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's basically it. Make sure it's got a stable internet connection.
Yep.
I know a lot of people have been messing around with Wi-Fi extenders, power line adapters, and yeah, they can work. A lot of people are saying, "Well, I've got this gigabit connection to my hotspot, but it's not working great." But when you really look into it, uh, speed doesn't matter; it's consistency. You could
Right.
have a 1 or 2 megabit connection that's plugged into Ethernet. That's far better. The hotspots don't need a lot of speed; they just need consistency. If you can get it on Ethernet, that's ideal. Wi-Fi is still fine. Just make sure it's a strong Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah.
Especially the rack hotspots that are surrounded by this metal box, their Wi-Fi is not great. So you
Yep.
want to make sure
Oh,
it's a nice signal,
Neil's gonna come
especially.
after you for that one because he's like, I mean, I think, yeah, this is a thing, Keenan, where you like, I think when you and I are talking to folks, is one of the things I kind of look for is how batshit crazy is this person going to be about this? Like, if they're a normal person and I tell them to get it up high, they're probably going to put it in their attic. If
Right.
they're if they're batshit crazy, they're going to do what what really you and I have done, which is like, okay, I'm going to go out and find the tallest pole and the biggest, like way to put this up. And I'm just going to like completely go for it. And neither of those is right or wrong. One of them will get you slightly better results. But I want to go back to one thing that from the realtor side is the single most important aspect of earnings with your hotspot is the location, right?
Absolutely.
And it's just like real estate, location, location, and the third one. Um, and that's something that people have a real hard time with. So if you're new to helium and you're coming in, is if you want to make the most HNT and really provide the most value to the network, is my wife and I have this thing when we're talking to each other about like a new idea. We'll say like we'll put our hands over our face, like say expand your mind. Is expand your mind as far as it goes for location. Is we all tend to think like, oh, my house is the only place I could put it. But if you can
Right.
talk to other people, if you've got friends, family, wherever you work, all of those things, don't be afraid to talk to people and look for the best location, because the location is the thing that's going to be the kind of killer app in helium. It's the rest of the stuff is
Absolutely.
fun, but
Location. So height is king no matter where you are. If your house is literally the only spot you can put it, okay, so be it. But I still don't think that's true. Of course, being a realtor, like you said, is a little bit easier for me. My job is to talk to people all day, and I have clients and things I can talk to about helium hotspots. But yeah, location's everything. So again, a lot of people come in to the Discord asking, okay, so if I put it in, let's use Toronto, a really oversaturated city with hotspots. There's hexes with like multiple hotspots per hex. They say, okay, well, more witnesses means more HNT, right? No, it's a bit more complicated than that. So you don't you don't want no hotspots around you within reach, and you don't want too many. Now, what that is hard to define. So what I tell people is, if you're in a city, honestly, it's probably not worth it for you unless you're really really high up. You're better than most people. If you're in a really nice tall high rise, you're on the 20th or 30th floor, you got a nice clear view of everyone else, sure, go for it. However, transmit scaling will kind of come into effect. And if there's a ton of hotspots, you're all kind of competing with each other. What I did personally when I started, which I know is a little bit harder to do these days, is I didn't focus on the city. I went to a suburb. I told you I bought 15 hotspots at the start. And I went around and talked to all family and friends in the general relative area of a small suburb, and had hotspots within a couple of kilometers of each other. And this is a town that had basically no hotspots or very few of them.
yep.
And that's what you want to do. And again, I understand that's not feasible these days for a lot of people, but if you have that ability, go create that network yourself. That's the way you're going to do it. Buy 5 hotspots, have them all talking to each other within a kilometer, two, three, whatever. A couple, like you can actually get like 10, 15 kilometers if you put a nice antenna high up.
Yep.
That would be ideal. You're right. Location is everything. As the maps fill in, um, a lot of people like to think of this as a set it and forget it type thing,
Yep.
but there is some work to it, right? Like you have to move them.
It's like set
Personally,
it
I
and
moved
reset
my
it.
hotspot.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's locations where I've got hotspots that they've declined in earnings to the point where I move them somewhere else and it goes right back up.
Yep.
You have
Same for
to
me.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Like there's some in the city that I've had there since the start, and now it's so saturated that I pulled them out, talked to some other people up north, and put them up there, and they're doing much better. You have to kind of constantly be on top of it.
Yeah.
You have to put in the work if you want maximum rewards.
Yep.
Whereas
100%.
with an ASIC or a GPU miner, you have it sitting running constantly 24/7. It does its thing. These are different. You have to do a little bit of legwork.
Yeah. And I'd put on there like just as silly as it sounds, I saw a couple folks asking in the chat, how do I find locations? Is there's a part of it where you can use software tools like Helium Vision or Hotspotty or Hotspot
Yeah.
RF. Those are all great tools. They all work really well to identify locations. But if you don't want to do that, or you don't have the time, or you don't have the technical ability, just think about like where is the highest spot in your local area. That's where you want to put a hotspot. Go find the
Yeah.
property owner and talk to them. And when they like when the first one or the first like whatever it is, the 8 out of 10 say no, just laugh to yourself, say like, yeah, Nick and Keenan told me this would happen, but I'm going to go find the two who are going to say yes. And when you find those two,
Yep.
it's going to be worth all the rest of it. So it's just keep going.
Absolutely, and yeah, that's basically it. Just keep trying.
Yeah.
Get out there and talk to people. That's the best you can do. And this is a bit of an unpopular opinion, but No offense to any of those tools, they're fantastic.
Yep.
I personally don't use them. I think the best tool that you can use is just explore. Go on, see where hotspots are, where hotspots aren't. Don't overthink it. I
Yep.
think there's a lot of people that come into the Discord and Twitter and Telegram thinking, okay, well, how can I micromanage this and how do I tweak it the best? Like, don't worry about it. Don't
Yep.
like bother with the line of sight calculations and stuff. Like you said, just find a high spot, get it up there, get it on the roof, make sure it's got a stable connection. You're good. Honestly, my hotspots have been earning consistently and great for a long time now.
Yeah.
Just don't overthink it and don't micromanage. Just find a good spot, put it up there, check it once in a while. If it starts to decrease, move it somewhere else.
Yep. Yep. In the let's see. So in the chat, I'm seeing some great questions about hosting and how to start that off. I don't want to spend a ton of time on that because we've got a lot of other stuff to talk about. I'll put two pieces in there. The first thing is, at least in the U.S., is when you earn, and I don't want to go too far down this thing because it just gets super geeky super fast or super taxy super fast, is when you earn the HNT is you are taxed based on the amount or the value of the HNT at the time you earn it. So if your hotspot earned one HNT that day and HNT was worth $20 at the Oracle price when it was mined, you owe taxes on $20. Now, I get it. That's not fair. I don't make the rules.
Yeah.
I know that you don't have the $20 in cash to pay it. And so you've got to figure out how you're going to pay it. But just know that when you're going into hosts, whenever you pay them their HNT, if you pay them an HNT, they are also responsible for that. And if you pay them in the US more than 600, you got to 1099 them. So before we go far down that path, just know you should have an agreement with your hosts if you're going to pay them an HNT or if you're going to pay them at all, about how that's going to work. Now, how you set that up is up to you, but don't overlook that. That'll be a problem for you later if you overlook that.
Absolutely. And just a note there, in Canada, we have a bit of, our rules are a little bit different. They're not as well laid out just yet. So there's still some gray area there. For example, again, don't quote me on this stuff, but I've spoken to my tax professional, and basically taxes are paid on what you've converted to currency.
Right.
You're not paying tax on anything that's mined just yet. That could change.
That's awesome. Maybe that's worth moving to Canada, but I got stuck with what I got stuck with. So
the government wants their piece either way, though. So,
yeah.
But you're right. So what I've done is when I first started, actually, when I was hosting, I was offering people cash to do it.
Yep.
And I quickly changed that. So what I do is 50-50. It's honestly the easiest way. It's the most fair way.
Yep.
It's the best way to encourage hosts to improve their setup.
Yep.
There's a lot of people that come on saying, well, my host doesn't want me to put anything on the roof. And I said, well, you're paying them 10%. Of course, they're not really incentivized to do anything for you. Pay 50% if you can, and just split the HNT. Honestly, that's the easiest way. Split the HNT, and then no matter if rewards decrease, which obviously they will continuously, there's no problem for you because you're just paying them percentage of HNT. Easiest way to do it. Don't promise anyone cash. Don't say, I'll pay for your electricity bill. I'll pay for your internet bill, because that's just not sustainable. So just do splits of HNT.
Yep, 100%. In fact, I've got to clean up a few of those myself. I was paying $150 a month for one place, and now it's like, well, that's going to start to get expensive.
It will. Absolutely.
Okay, so you're new to Helium. You came in, you got your hotspot. We went through how to think about it as location is the most important thing, and then getting it up high, and then getting an aftermarket antenna on it. And those are all in kind of like maybe orders of magnitude decreasing importance, right? A location is easily the most important, and then getting it up high is like a tenth as important, and then getting the right antenna on it is again a tenth as important as that. Now, those numbers aren't exact, but when I see folks in the chat saying like, oh, what should I get? Should I get a giant antenna? Is like that is at the bottom of the chain of things that will make a difference.
Absolutely. If you have, like I said, this OG hotspot here with its tiny little 1.2 dBi antenna, that thing is awesome.
Yeah.
You get it high up, that's what matters more so than putting a huge antenna on it. I've had one of those in a high-rise apartment before I upgraded the antenna, and it was doing amazing. It was hitting like 40, 50 kilometer witnesses. Yeah, a bigger antenna will help, but this thing is already great. So height for sure is king. And like you said, location.
Dig it. And I should probably cover my ass a little bit. Like, none of this is financial advice. If you take financial advice from this guy, you're an idiot.
I promise.
Uh, okay, so so those are the things to pay attention to: is location, elevation, cables, connectors. What are the things to not pay attention to, but that people frequently do? What do you see people freaking out about? Where you're just like, dude, just don't worry about that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, again, this could be an unpopular opinion, but a lot of people are micromanaging stuff with like the LMR cable to your antenna. They're like, oh, it's got to be LMR 600 only, and a per foot of this DBI loss. Like, don't worry about it. Honestly, yeah, make it as short as you can. I have no hotspots that have LMR 400 cable at all. I use the pigtail stuff that the rack antennas came with, and they do amazing. Um, Sure.
Don't
I
tell me
mean,
that.
oh, I'm going to get attacked in Discord for that
No,
because
no,
they'll be
you're
like, oh,
100% right though. Like this,
it, it works. It just
yeah,
works.
it
Don't
works.
worry
And
about it too much.
for the RF folks watching, it's really important to know that helium, while it is an RF radio frequency based system, it is, and it follows the rules of physics just like everything else, is that there's also this earning layer on top of it.
There
And
is.
my understanding is that because the kind of acceptance rules for signal strength are so wide, you can earn really well with what a ham guy or radio guy or girl would consider a subpar antenna setup. You can still be earning
Absolutely.
really, really well. And so we have to separate out
Absolutely.
like our knowledge of kind of crypto and the mapping side and the blockchain incentive side and the RF side and say, okay, where they intersect is where I want to pay attention. I don't want to optimize too much for one or the other.
Well, I look at it also as people keep coming in and they're like, well, I spent $300 on this cable. I spent $200 on this antenna. I spent $100 on this mount. It adds up really quickly.
Yeah,
And yeah, months ago or a year ago, sure, that would probably
it was
benefit
worth it.
you a lot. Yeah, it was worth it. At this point, I think that's starting to not be as worth it anymore. You want to get a return on what you're putting out there, and I think all that extra money spent into these little tweaks are not worth it, for my opinion. Um, and again, I might get flamed for that, but this has been my experience over 2 years doing this.
Yep.
I've tested and tried a lot of things over the years. I've got equipment laying around me everywhere here, and yeah, just don't overthink it.
Yep.
Honestly, like we said before, height, location, get it up there. Don't worry about, oh, I need to get this cable. Oh, I need to upgrade my concentrator. Uh, if it's not broken, don't
Don't
try
worry
and
about
fix
it.
it. It just
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Don't
see we
think
got some
people,
OGs in the chat. We got Travis saying like, hey, like kind of I think he's agreeing with us, saying like LoRaWAN's designed to put up with kind of basically crappy deployments or to put up with
it's,
a dirty or confused or congested radio environment. With some I'm seeing Parley Labs in there, of course, 619 OTA. So super good to see all you guys jump in on the chat. Keenan, let's talk about. So I think we've hit like what to do with the hotspot when you get it. Let's talk about for a beginner, where is Helium or now Nova or the Helium Foundation? Like, where's it going? What's going to be the next thing that you're paying attention to where you're thinking, okay, what do I do next? Right? I've deployed my hotspots. I got them up high. I did all that stuff. What are you looking at next for Helium?
absolutely company usage. That is what the network's for.
Yep.
There's a lot of confusion, I think, in when newbies come in and they kind of see it as just a token to be mined.
Yep.
That's not the case. It's a usable network, and we're creating this network of hotspots for a reason. So uh, what I think the next few years is going to happen is a lot of companies are going to start to jump in and actually use the network. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is we're doing POC, so proof of coverage, and you're getting rewarded for that. That will slowly transition over to data usage, and POC will eventually start to go away. As companies start to use more data, that's what you're going to get rewarded for. So, like we talked about the dog collar trackers, things like that. Those, if someone has one of those devices in your neighborhood and their dog walks by with that collar on and it's pinging off of your hotspot, you're going to get paid for that. And the amount for that right now is very little, but it
Yep.
will continue to increase as we go forward. Uh, so that I think is the biggest thing for LoRaWAN. I think it's that if you build it, they will come
Yep.
um, methodology. I think there's a lot of people that think, well, why isn't the network getting used right now? It's still early days. you have to create it first. You have to create robust coverage for a company to go, you know what, that's a perfect network for us to use. Look at this coverage from east to west coast. I can track my courier trucks right across the country for a tenth of the cost.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
we
Gotcha.
need to build it first, which is fantastic. Uh, Beyond LoRaWAN, I think 5G will be absolutely massive. I think offloading 5G coverage to Helium hotspots will just take off. So we're going to have two separate networks, and I think again that's a point of confusion for a lot of newbies that come in
Yeah.
and they're like, "Well, is 5G going to make my current hotspot obsolete?" Absolutely not. They're two separate networks. They're going to run concurrently with each other, and they're two separate use cases. LoRaWAN, your current hotspot, will be for very low powered small devices. 5G will be for cell phones, laptops, things like that that use massive amounts of data. Um, yeah, I think we've got a ways to go. And Nova Labs, or Helium Inc., which is now Nova Labs, are continuing to reach out. And you're seeing partnerships launched all the time,
Yeah.
roaming partnerships, which are fantastic. You're going to start to see that snowball, and you're going to start to see more companies coming on board because the cost is just so low for them to use it.
Yep. Yep. So I'll put in a couple quick plugs here and some examples. Is I've got this group called the Gristle Crew, and we are working on a bunch of DY grants, or now the Helium Foundation grants. And this is important for you, the listener, is this idea that Helium, the blockchain, is going into sensor use. That's what's going to be the next big thing. That's what the thing was built for. That's why they have whatever's like 3 billion in investment or market cap. Sorry. So it behooves you to figure out the sensor use as the next thing. And what we do on this Gristle Crew thing, which you can find on the Gristle King website, just look at Gristle Crew in the top menu, is we meet once a week and we talk about what's going on in the Helium network right now. I think this week and last week we talked about taxes, but beyond that, or the next thing we're talking about, is more of these grants from DY. And these grants from DY are designed to incentivize you, or to help you put sensor stuff on the network. So one of the grants that is active right now, you can look this up, it's the SDRPF People Counter in Gristle King, is they gave me the equivalent, at least right now, of I think it's like $15,000 to buy a bunch of sensors and deploy them on trails, and those sensors count the number of people hiking on those trails. And so
Fantastic.
this is a project for me where it's Gristle King plus local public and private entities, and me saying like, hey, look, let me show you how to use this network. This network goes in your trails. You can count the number of people on your trails. You can see, and then you can make good land management decisions based on that data, right? And then so the public side is psyched about that because they typically don't have funds to go out and buy really nice sensors. The private side is psyched about that as well because it's a nonprofit, same kind of thing. I'm psyched about it because I get to go outside and put technology in the wild. Helium's psyched about it. Helium Foundation's psyched about it because we're demonstrating how to show off how the thing gets used. And then the network itself is, not that a network gets excited, but is really good for it because we're starting to push data through it. So
Absolutely.
if you're watching this and you think, okay, I've got my hotspots deployed, what's next? What's next is going into sensor stuff.
Yeah, and think about that. Like, and just to bounce off of that, I started looking for a host that was really high up. So we found this spot that had a radio tower in the highest part of southern Ontario. So it's actually, I don't want to say mountain, but a really big hill because
Yeah.
we don't have mountains here. But so it just started as a hosting thing. I was like, okay, can I put it up there? And then as you start talking to the owner of this place, they're actually creating a large downhill mountain biking course. And he's like, oh, so what's this hotspot about? And he's like, do you think we could put sensors on all the bike rentals so that like if they go out of bounds or they take off, we can track them? I was like, yeah, absolutely, you can. So now we're in talks with them to put a couple hundred sensors on their bikes and their trails. So, like you said, you can count how many bikes are going through. Overnight, you can see if the trails are getting used when they shouldn't be. And for their mountain bikes, they can see if they're staying on site or not. And it's, again, financially amazing for them because it's super cheap. I put a hotspot up there, so they've got coverage now. And yeah, and we're benefiting the network by getting more data usage on there. And
Yep.
then again, snowball effect. Hopefully, they tell their friends or other colleagues about, hey, I've got this great system, this super cheap system of tracking our bikes. Maybe you should get into it yourself.
Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, that should come through pretty clearly that both of us who have deployed a bunch of hotspots and have a fair idea of what it takes to put out a high earning hotspot and do well on Helium are now like pushing you in the direction of sensor exploration is I would say go for that. I saw two things in the chat I wanted to hit. One was Performance Jet Ski 1. You may know my friend Sean Eladio, who's a rad jet skier, which is a separate piece. If you want to look up one of the coolest women on the planet, look up Sean Eladio. And then what Performance Jet Ski had said, it said, hey, I wish we'd talk more about what's going on with the Helium network right now. I'll just say that the Helium network for the next 3 to probably 6 weeks, depending on how fast we roll out light hotspots, it's going to be a shit show. Right? Don't expect it to be this awesome network. Don't expect it to be the awesome network that it eventually will be. Right? It is limping along kind of to get across the line and get over to getting all this compute power pushed onto the validators so that they can run the challenges. Until it does that, it's just going to go up and down. Your earnings are going to be okay. They're going to be good, and then they're going to suck. And if you pay attention to that, you're going to drive yourself crazy. So,
well, you're right. I think I do say on the Discord it's normal, but I think people take that the wrong way as it's normal for the current state it's in is what I really mean. So, like I said before, we've grown exponentially, and the network. Yes, we obviously expected it to grow, but maybe not this quickly and this robustly with all these hotspots coming on 30,000 a month. Like that's crazy. So you're right. It is limping along a little bit right now. And rewards will be inconsistent. Absolutely. This is why we're going towards light hotspots. This is why we're accelerating that to get this done. Because everyone agrees. Yeah, it's not fun to look at your hotspot the next day and go, oh, it didn't earn me anything today. Yep. Or you get one little spike and then nothing for 2 days. Agreed. That's super frustrating. I've got friends myself. I've got hosts that say, what's going on? But there's growing pains. This is something that no one's ever done before. This is the biggest peer-to-peer network. Again, a miracle it's even working still. So knock on wood that we get to light hotspots and it continues to work. But yeah, there's definitely some growing pains. All I can say is just have some patience. I think everyone in the Discord gets a little bit frustrated when people come in, and I get it. The frustration comes across. They're like, what the hell is going on with the network? Just know that the developers obviously take this very seriously too, and they're constantly working on it. So just be respectful of them that they want it to work as much as you do.
Yes,
there's a ton of work. Yeah, there's a ton of work going on behind the scenes. They're frustrated too. That's why we're trying to get to this ultimate goal of light hotspots, and that's hopefully what makes it run a lot smoother in the near future. But you're right, absolutely. The next few weeks, shit show might be a good word.
maybe that's a great. I think that's pretty accurate. So we also have the other comment from the chat I wanted to see is we got Matthew Hamilton saying I'm installing my first hotspot tonight after work. So Matthew,
nice.
Right on, dude.
Excellent.
That's let's try to talk him through what to expect. So you get this thing plugged in. Hopefully you're getting it up high. Is the kind of advice I would give you is plug it in, get it connected to your wallet, assert it in the location in general that it's in. And I think you can assert, and this, I gotta be careful about what I say, but I think for privacy reasons, I'm fine kind of putting it out publicly that you can assert within 150 meters of your house. And typically I tell my clients to assert at the closest busy intersection that's within 150 meters to give yourself privacy. Now, is that technically gaming? Yes. If you want to come after me for that, fine, fucking come after me. But I think there's a privacy issue that it's like, no, when you assert your hotspot in a location, while it can't be seen on Explorer, Helium Explorer, it can be seen on any of the paid apps, Hotspotty or Helium Vision or Hotspot RF. Like you can see exactly where that person asserted, and so it's a privacy issue. Keenan, where do you sit on them?
I personally say like 50 meters is fine. I mean, it's honestly there's a bit of a gray area there too. Like if you're trying to be somewhat accurate look at it from the point of view of a sensor user. If they bring their sensor into that area, is it going to work relative to where your hotspot is? If 150 meters, okay, that's not a huge deal. If it's a kilometer off or 2 kilometers, that's a huge deal.
Yep.
So that's kind of where I look at it. There's some variance there. And I get you want to have a little bit of privacy, and that's okay. That's
Yep.
completely okay. You don't
Us
want to.
Americans are crazy about our privacy. Sometimes we don't care at all, and sometimes we defend it with like our dog's life or whatever.
No, you have every right to. That's right. I mean, when I first started on Explorer, it was precise dots,
Yep.
um, uh, pretty much exactly where your house was. So we
Yep.
moved to a hex system. So um, to that gentleman who is deploying his hotspot today, by the way, when you assert your location, um, when you type in your address or wherever you're going to put it, you're going to click assert, and it's actually probably going to snap somewhere a little bit else distance wise. It snaps to the middle of one of those hexes, which might not be where you put it exactly. That's completely okay, and that's completely normal. It's just the nature of the system. Don't be worried by that.
Nice. Ooh, pro
So don't be
tip.
like, oh my god, it's 50 meters away or it's 100 meters away. Like, no, that's okay. That's fine.
Yep.
You're not going to be on denial list for that. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So then the next thing is you plug it in, you do all that stuff, connect to your wallet, assert the location. The next thing to do after you do that is probably like go get a nice dinner with your partner or whatever and
Yeah.
just come back to it in like 3 days. Go like on a mountain bike ride, go to work, like just enjoy your life for a couple days before really worrying about it.
So before I forget, I want to say two things first.
Yeah.
So again, to that gentleman who's setting up his hotspot today, if you're setting up your wallet, first thing, do not take screenshots of those 12 words. Write them down physically.
Yes.
Write them down, write them down, write them down. Maybe on 2 or 3 sets of different pieces of paper. Put them somewhere where they're safe and you're going to remember them. Second thing on that note, if you come onto the Discord and anyone DMs you or anyone saying to put in your 12 words somewhere, if they sound like support or admin, it's a scam. Never, never, never. Even if I ask you for your 12 words, if Crystal asks you for them, uh, don't give anyone your 12 words. Those are the keys to the castle. Keep those to yourself. After that, you're right. Plug it in, get it running, connect to Bluetooth. Make sure the little green checks are saying, yeah, you're connected. You're right. Go to dinner. Go do something. Don't look at it for a little while. Don't micromanage it. The more you stare at it, I look at it like a watch pot never boils. You're going to stare at the thing and go, why the hell isn't it doing anything? But behind the scenes, it actually is working. So let it be. Let it sit there, come back in a couple days, and then see what it's done. And again, give it a little bit of leeway for the time right now that the network's struggling a little bit. So it
Yeah.
needs a little bit of extra time.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
when you say extra time, Keenan, I think in the next 3 weeks, that could be for it to sync up to the blockchain. That could take anywhere from an hour to 96 hours. Like it's all over the map.
It is. I've seen some take like up to a week.
Yeah.
Some of like the slower hardware can take a while. We're not going to get into like fast syncing and stuff right now, but yeah, it could take an hour. It could take a week. It's just the majority people, I think, take about like a day or two for it to sync up, and then you're properly running.
Yep. Yeah. And I think there's all kinds of tools, and I'm seeing them in the chat to kind of check your sync and do the rest of that. I'm not going to tell you don't do that, but I just think it's the total like watch pot never boils. Like, sure, check out those tools, have a good time, like enjoy yourself learning about the technology, but don't tie yourself to the thing earning for your happiness is probably the
No,
best way to put it.
and on that note, actually, too, a lot of those like hotspotty and things like that, they're using an API to read the information. So a lot of people come in and they say, "Well, I'm out of sync," or like, "Why am I ahead in sync?" I take that information with a grain of salt, which is again going back to I don't really use that software. I don't think
Yeah.
it's necessary for most people. If you really want to know, go to your hotspot, click the little Bluetooth button, connect to it, see what the actual diagnostics from the hotspot say. That's the most accurate information. Because yeah, you'll go on Explorer, and Explorer is delayed. So again, referencing that gentleman who's installing his hotspot today, if he's connected to his hotspot, it might say, yeah, it's synced up and running, but on Explorer it says offline or syncing still.
Yeah.
Take the information from your hotspot as fact, and then just wait for Explorer to catch up. Again, there's a huge network. It's a bit delayed. Wait it out. Don't watch Explorer too carefully.
Yep, 100%. If you have to look at something, I think heliumstatus.io is probably the fastest way to check stuff. That's BFG Neil's thing. He's probably on here.
Fantastic.
So
Yeah.
that's the best way to do it. But again, if you plugged it in and you've got it connected don't worry about it after that for a couple days. Like you're way better off like working on cooking the greatest steak ever and enjoying it than you are fiddling with the hotspot.
Well, the first couple hours, you really don't know if something's gone wrong or
Yeah.
not, quite honestly. So you might as well just wait it out and come back a little while later and then see. Because for the first while, it's going to look like it's not doing anything, but it is.
Yep.
So just have faith in the boxes that they're doing their thing.
Yeah. 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 Dig it, dude. Well, I think this is pretty helpful. We're coming up on an hour. I want to make sure that we don't blast through your Canadian time. I know that's pretty important. And I'm looking at our shared doc, which I can drop in the description. But I think we hit most of the stuff that we wanted to talk about that was for beginners. I guess the last piece is this question of, let's say someone sees this and they've got maybe a couple hotspots deployed and they want to, maybe A, they have a complaint about the network, or B, they're more what I want and they want to help fix the network. Is how do people go about fixing or improving or contributing to the network?
Yeah, so I mean that's what it's all about, is the community, and if you've got some good ideas, share them for sure. So the Discord, I would say, is the biggest resource for all the proper information. And the first thing I would say is it's a huge Discord. There's tons of channels. Either just ask your questions in there, search through. There's tons of stuff that's already been answered.
Yep.
The biggest thing I would say is read the HIPs. So HIP is Helium Improvement Proposal. And that's where things change. That's where anyone in the community can suggest, hey, you know what? I've got this idea for whatever it is. They can write up a HIP, and then the community can vote on it if that's a great idea. So if you go into the Discord, on the left channel there, if you scroll down, it'll have a list of all the active HIPs,
Yep.
and you can go through and read them. I suggest everyone who comes into the Discord go read through all those. Yes, it's a lot of information, but really, that's a big resource. A lot of people come into the Discord also and say, well, nothing's being done about gaming. Unfortunately, yes, there's gaming, but it's continuously being worked on, and the HIPs address a lot of that too.
Yep.
You just have to go through and read that information. And we're happy to direct you to that information as well. But yeah, if you've got something to ask, feel free, jump in. There's tons of mods on there, tons of community mentors who are amazing. They're doing great work. I'm on there all day. Yep. And yeah, happy to answer some questions. There's a lot of information to take in. And for newbies also, this is a bit of a technical site, but if you go to docs.helium.com, that will basically explain everything about the network, how POC works, the reward structure, literally everything is in there. That's another good resource to take a look at. And then, yeah, anything else, come and ask us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the cool things about Helium is that it's all understandable. It's just how much effort you want to put into it to understand it. Is fundamentally, it's this blockchain piece that is open and pretty darn transparent. Sure, there are some times where, especially in the past, Helium has kind of stepped in and said, hey, in order to protect the network, we're going to do something pretty secret. I think most of that stuff is behind us. And we're in this place where you, as a normal person who can read and write, can go through the internet and find out anything you want to find out about Helium, whether that's what a chain variable means or what a chain variable is or how chain variables work, what they are. All of that stuff is public, and it's on the docs or it's on the chain. You can look at it. You can see what the block time is. You can see what the block time should be. You can see what's currently going on with challenges. If you're really technical, you can write that stuff yourself. If you're not technical, you can see the kind of red and green gauges over on heliumanalytics.io. And that will show you right away, like, oh yeah, the network is a little bit behind right now. Or Absolutely. It'll show you that like your hotspot is behind, but the network is fine.
Yeah, and again, if you come into the Discord too, the best place to the first thing you do should be go to the announcements. So it's hashtag announcements or blockchain announcements. That's where the developers keep you posted as to what's actively going on with the network. And if there's an issue, it's posted there usually to say what's going on and what's being done about it. That's the best place to log in and check to see what's going on. Also, status.helium.com is also another good resource to see if like the blockchain's still running or if sensor usage is still okay. Yeah, tons of resources. I get it. It's a bit overwhelming, especially for new people coming in. There's a
Yeah.
ton of information. There's so much information. It's information overload. I completely get that. I
Yep.
empathize with you. It's easy for me to say, as I've been doing this for 2 years, I've absorbed a lot of information.
Yeah. You've already read them all.
Well, most. There's still tons I haven't read. I just don't sometimes don't have the time. But
Yep.
yeah, I get for a newbie how there's a lot of information to go through. But just ask, and we'll direct you to where it is.
Yep. FPL Big Head in the chat is looking for a Discord invite. I'm not going to mess with it now, but if any of you guys have the invite to the Helium Discord server, drop it in there. Because that's awesome. And Travis has also just said, if you want more detail, like if you're that engineering type, and one of the really cool things is we have a lot of engineering types coming into Helium, and they're saying, hey, look, I know software, or I know hardware, or I know RF, or whatever it is, I can contribute. Is going into the engineering blog, and while most of us won't understand what they're trying to say in there, you engineer types will, and you can really contribute. In fact, to put a point on this idea of a HIP being able to be written and affect the entire community, the shining example, and as far as I know, is HIP 15 and HIP 17, which was written more or less by one dude with the help from some other folks who is a rocket scientist, and he wrote the thing that is now guiding and directing the network. It was just this small group of people who put it together and did it. I don't think he's not as active in the Helium community as he was, but one person of this small group of people changed and shaped and directed Helium for the better. You can do it too. It's a pretty awesome community to be part of.
Absolutely, yeah. Like if he fundamentally changed the way the system worked, and that was just one guy. So, and for the better, obviously.
Yeah,
So yeah,
cool.
put your ideas through.
Ripping. Well, I think that should do it. I see that you guys are pretty active in the chat, and I saw Dustin posted the Discord link. So thanks for helping out there. This, just like everything else with Helium, is a community effort, and it's a lot of volunteer stuff. And I appreciate everyone coming on and contributing in the chat. And Keenan, I really appreciate you making the time to say like, hey, here's my journey. It's always cool to kind of connect in like a human face with the Discord name. So thanks, dude.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome.
Yeah, heck yeah. I'm going to wrap this sucker up, but thanks for coming on. Lates.